It's time to talk about June's Journey, a hidden object mystery game with a captivating detective story. When you're playing, you solve a mind-teasing mystery of the roaring 1920s while you dive into June's captivating quest to uncover a scandalous family secret and solve her sister's murder. It's mystery, it's danger, and it's romance, and you never know where the next chapter's gonna take you. If that wasn't fun enough, you get to customize your very own luxurious island estate. Seriously, I cannot stop playing. I am already on the 3rd chapter, and I just started recently. Join me back in time in the glamorous 1920s. June needs your help, detective. Download June's Journey for free today on iOS and Android.
You wanted to see me, Miss Swinton?
Have you been hearing about the new government modernization efforts?
AI, RPAs, data science.
Things are changing at this agency, and people will need new skills. I'd like you to get some training. Look at this management concepts catalog.
Wow, over 275 courses.
That's right, in local classrooms or instructor-led online classes. We still have budget in this fiscal year, so sign up online.
Advance your career with courses from Management Concepts. Get a catalog at managementconcepts.com or call 833-578-8466.
This podcast may discuss topics graphic in nature and possibly triggering to survivors. We value the safety and well-being of all of our listeners, so please practice personal discretion. Now, enjoy the show. Hey, I'm Paige.
And I'm Natalie.
We're the hosts of the Murder Diaries podcast.
We bonded over tacos and true crime after we matched on Bumble BFF.
You know, like any normal millennial using an app to meet new friends.
Every Thursday, we upload a new episode.
In each episode of the Murder Diaries, we tell true crime one story at a time. One week it's my turn.
And the next week it's mine.
You still think it's in my head, but I'm walking with the dead.
Today's case is just going to be me, Natalie, but don't worry. Nothing's changing here at the Murder Diaries. My Bumble BFF, Paige, and I will be reunited in next week's episode. Until then, let me tell you about a 2018 case that took place halfway around the world in New Zealand. Grace Millane had big plans when she graduated university. She wanted to see the world. She'd spent the last few years with her nose in a book and wasn't ready to jump into the 9-to-5 grind just yet. So she saved and saved and saved until she had enough money for a year-long solo backpacking trip, leaving behind everything and everyone she knew in England to meet new people and explore different cultures. But on the eve of Grace's 22nd birthday, mere weeks into her adventure, those plans came to a screeching halt. This is the story of Grace Emmy Rose Millane. Today is the day. Those are the words 21-year-old Essex native Grace Millane tweeted on the morning of October 26, 2018. She also included a gif of the Lord of the Rings character Frodo skipping as he says, "I'm going on an adventure." A month after graduating from the University of Lincoln with a degree in advertising and marketing, Grace was all set to see the world outside of England. But not before cutting her long brown hair and donating her locks to the Little Princess Trust to be made into wigs for those with childhood cancer. That should give you an idea of who Grace was. Loved ones describe her as outgoing, family-oriented, artistic, but most of all, kind. The world was her oyster and she was ready to explore it. As I mentioned in the introduction, she'd spent months planning what would be her first time traveling abroad alone, leaving her parents Jillian and David and 2 older brothers Michael and Declan at home, only taking a few pieces of luggage and her social media followers with her, sharing photos and videos every step of the way from the Heathrow airport terminals to tiny South American towns. She spends the first 6 weeks of her trip in Peru sharing photos of llamas, and even a photo with a group of other travelers at the top of Machu Picchu captioned, quote, "We did it." On November 19th, 2018, she leaves Peru and spends the next 10 days exploring the northern part of New Zealand, visiting a lighthouse and the Bay of Islands. Grace then heads south and arrives in Auckland, the largest city in New Zealand, on Friday, November 30th, 2018. Grace checks into a hostel on Queen Street called Base Backpackers, where she shares a room with other solo travelers. She settles into her space and logs onto Tinder sometime that night, quickly matching with a local man. The following day, Saturday, December 1st, Grace and her Tinder match add each other on Facebook and exchange pleasantries via the app's messaging feature before he asks her about her plans on Sunday evening. Grace shares that tomorrow, Sunday, is her 22nd birthday, but she doesn't have plans. The man wishes Grace, quote, happy birthday for tomorrow, unquote, before asking if she'd like to meet up in a few hours instead. Grace is unsure about meeting him, but changes her mind as they continue chatting. Here's a portion of their conversation, starting with Grace. So where would we go? The date responds, well, I know a cool Mexican place up near Sky City that does great cocktails. Grace responds, okay, no to the Mexican, but maybe to the cocktails. The date responds again, okay, there's a few places up there that do great cocktails. How about we meet at Sky City? To which Grace says, I haven't said yes yet. The Tinder match says, you haven't said no either. So what's it going to take to make this happen then? Maybe we could get a drink? Grace says, yeah, maybe. The date says, maybe yes. And Grace says, convince me. He laughs and says, well, my shout? And Grace doesn't have any idea what that means. So she says, what? And he explains, saying, I will buy the drink, my shout. The two eventually settle on a time and place to meet for drinks before logging off the app. But before we get any further into the events of the evening, I need to acknowledge the fact that Grace's case relies heavily on the CCTV footage of her comings and goings on this fateful night. As such, I'm going to do my best to be as descriptive as possible, but even the most detailed accounts can't compare to the actual footage. Seeing Grace with your own eyes as she smiles and laughs, unaware of what is to come. The New Zealand Herald released a compilation of the CCTV footage pertaining to Grace's case on YouTube. And as always, I linked that in the show notes along with the rest of today's resources. Now back to Grace's timeline on December 1st. She leaves the base backpackers hostel at 5:37 p.m. wearing a black knee-length t-shirt dress and white tennis shoes. She wears her hair down and has a small purse over one shoulder. It's still light out as she walks from the hostel to Sky City. It's an entertainment complex with bars, eateries, stores, and even a casino. It's a couple blocks away, no more than a 7-minute walk. The Sky City CCTV footage shows Grace arrive at 5:45 p.m. There's a good-sized crowd of people in the vicinity, along with multiple Christmas trees and even an igloo. It's December, after all. The footage is shot from overhead, and you can see Grace standing next to a shrub when she's approached by a man who also appears to be in his 20s. He's wearing a light blue long-sleeve shirt, partially opened with a darker blue shirt underneath and blue denim pants. He approaches her with arms outstretched, enveloping her in a hug. Well, she's more reserved, giving him a sort of side hug. They then turn and walk off toward the escalators, chatting with one another. Then the two of them walk side by side past an electric BMW with a sign that reads, "Win this car," before entering the first of many bars that night, Andy's Burger Bar on the second floor, which we later learned to have been suggested by Grace's Tinder date. Grace and the man look like an ordinary couple on a date. Both appear easygoing as they converse with one another, occasionally looking over the menus. They order and enjoy their libations for an hour and a half before heading to a Mexican restaurant the man had suggested earlier that day in their messages. It's around the corner from Andy's Burger Bar, so it doesn't take long for them to arrive at 7:18. They order more drinks, specifically tequila, before leaving for a third bar called the Blue Stone Room, arriving at 8:36 p.m. They grow closer and closer as the night goes on. And at one point, they kiss passionately with the man's hand in Grace's dark brown hair. When Grace's date leaves their high-top table for the restroom, she pulls out one of her 2 phones and texts a friend from back home named Amin. And her text says, quote, "I click with him so well. He's an oil manager. He lives in a hotel," unquote. Time passes. The date returns and Grace is now away from the table. Grace's date takes her absence as an opportunity to pick up her purse from the other side of the table and sift through its contents. before returning her purse to its spot as if he hadn't touched it. They leave the Bluestone room arm in arm a little more than an hour after their arrival. Sidewalk CCTV captures the pair walking, his arm snaked around her waist. They arrive at the City Life Hotel, walking through the automatic sliding glass doors and concierge carts parked at the front. The date has a, quote, apartment there, but the majority of resources refer to it as a hotel. I liken it to an extended stay that are common here in the U.S. The next morning, Sunday, December 2nd, friends and family flood Grace's 2 cell phones with birthday messages. She was very loved and far from home. They missed her, even though she, quote unquote, bombarded. That's how her brother Declan and her father David describe her communication to the Millane family WhatsApp chat. Grace constantly and without fail sent daily photos and videos of her activities abroad. But Sunday, December 2nd, 2018, was different. Grace stopped communicating altogether. Nobody had heard from her since the evening before. And when her family called her cell phones, both went to voicemail.
Is your daily grind getting you down? A ThermoSpa's hot tub may be the solution. Just a few minutes under those powerful soothing jets, and all your stress seems to melt away, like you're lying on a cloud of bubbles. You'll not only feel better, but sleep better too. Call 877-861-4672 now, and for a limited time, save $1,250. Call 877-861-4672 or visit thermospas.com to schedule a free on-site assessment. Is your daily grind getting you down? A ThermoSpa's hot tub may be the solution. Just a few minutes under those powerful soothing jets, and all your stress seems to melt away, like you're lying on a cloud of bubbles. You'll not only feel better, but sleep better too. Call 877-861-4672 now, and for a limited time, save $1,250. Call 877-861-4672 or visit thermospas.com to schedule a free on-site assessment.
Her social media accounts no longer received updates, remaining frozen in time on December 1st, 2018, the day she last uploaded a new Facebook profile photo. The Millane family's worry grows as the minutes, hours, and days tick by without word from Grace. Wasting no time, her brother spearhead a social media campaign to raise awareness of her disappearance. And on December 5th, 2018, David and Jillian Millane report their daughter Grace as missing to the Auckland police, with her father acknowledging that they had never gone this long without contact with Grace. Law enforcement springs into action and heads straight to Base Backpackers Hostel, where Grace was staying. They find all of Grace's belongings still in the room, and they speak to the other travelers who had little information except that Grace never returned to the hostel after she left on Saturday evening, which was already 4 days earlier. Police initially say there's, quote, no evidence of foul play, unquote. But the search for Grace continues, now led by Detective Inspector Scott Beard. Without any leads, investigators begin piecing together a timeline of Grace's last known movements with the help of New Zealand's extensive CCTV network in Auckland. And as you've probably gathered by now, there are cameras everywhere in Auckland, and all of them seem to be in 4K, like seriously great quality images, unlike most footage we see in true crime cases. The investigators start at Grace's departure from the hostel, and they easily trace her steps to Sky City, where, as we know, she met her Tinder date. Police then backtrack his movements via the same CCTV, which made it easy for them to identify Grace's date as 26-year-old Jessie Shane Kempson. They dive into Grace's social media accounts and realize that the two are friends on Facebook, with Jessie even commenting, quote, beautiful, very radiant, unquote, on the profile photo Grace posted on December 1st, the same day they met. Jessie seems to have been pretty active on Facebook that day because he also posted a long message to his followers. I debated whether or not to include this message because, like I said, it's incredibly lengthy. However, I feel like it's worth reading through the message because it gives everyone a fuller picture of who exactly Jessie was presenting himself to be on the day he met Grace. So without further ado, here's what he had to say. Quote, "Hey everyone, I just wanted to touch base with you all. I've made a lot of bad decisions in my life so far that I'm not proud of, some of which have greatly affected others. I firstly want to extend the most sincere apologies for this. I've done a lot of reflection over time and have narrowed down the cause of it all. And with that being said, I believe you all deserve to know. My clear arrogance and selfishness has truly affected the relationship I have with people in my personal life. I know that I was growing up emotionally, mentally, and when we grow up, we make mistakes. That's how we improve. In the exam of life, you can't retest yourself with the same question paper. But with that being said, we can change how we treat each other. And over time, I've learned that every action has a reaction. But I've also learned how much compassion we all have as people. I've recently been diagnosed with severe anxiety and currently take medication to keep this under control. Putting all that aside, I just want anyone I've hurt, let down, to know I'm truly sorry from the bottom of my heart." Unquote. Reading that, you probably still have no idea who Jesse Shane Kempson is. So let me break it down for you. The 26-year-old Wellington, New Zealand native is a compulsive liar who's estranged from the majority of his family, constantly evicted from apartments for failure to pay his rent, and unable to keep a job. For example, he worked as a phone salesman before getting fired the same day he matched with Grace on Tinder. As for lying, he was known to tell people he had cancer when in fact he didn't. Most importantly, though, he is the last known person to see Grace Millane alive. As it turns out, there's more footage of Grace and Jesse from Saturday, December 1st, the night she was last seen. Remember, CCTV caught the two of them in the lobby of Jesse's building, the City Life Hotel. Well, they're also seen exiting the elevator on the 3rd floor and entering room 308, Jesse's apartment. That's it. The last footage of Grace Millane ever. 2 Auckland police officers arrive at Jesse's hotel/apartment building on December 5th, hours after the Millane family reported Grace missing. They question the concierge in the lobby when they spot Jesse enter and make a quick U-turn before exiting the building. He attempts to appear calm as he's seen strolling, hands in his pockets, as he crosses the street. The investigators spot him, run after him, and bring him to the station for questioning. At this point, law enforcement has thousands upon thousands of hours of CCTV to scour through, to figure out all of Jesse's movements following his date with Grace. But they're unwilling to waste a minute more. Time is of the essence. They need to find Grace now, and Jesse could be the only person who knows where to find her, at least until they finish looking through the CCTV footage. In just a moment, you'll hear a portion of Jesse's interrogation with an Auckland police officer. Prior to this conversation, Jesse told the officer that his date with Grace ended with a, quote, "a hug, a kiss on the cheek," unquote. But it's clear investigators aren't buying his lies. Unfortunately, they don't have any proof just yet, and all they can do is pile on the pressure. Now for the audio. The officer is the first to speak.
And we're very, very concerned for her safety, obviously. It's entirely possible that she's been the victim of foul play.
Okay.
You understand what that means?
Yeah.
What would your feelings be about providing us with a voluntary DNA sample in the event that we can compare that against something? Would you be happy with that?
100%. I mean, I know I haven't done anything wrong, so I'm happy to do it.
Okay. At this stage, we don't know what's happened to this girl.
Okay.
It's possible that somebody has killed her. Okay.
Okay.
You understand that?
Yeah.
She might, when I say foul play, I mean that someone might have murdered her. I don't know if she's been murdered or not yet. She may be alive and well.
Okay.
But she might also be dead.
Okay.
Okay? And it could be that you've done it.
I want to quickly jump in for some clarity when listening to this next segment of Jesse's initial interrogation. He's now alone in the room when he stands up from the table and knocks on the door. The same officer from the first clip answers, and the following conversation ensues.
Hey, I just want to ask a question. Have I been arrested for something I didn't do?
You haven't been arrested, mate.
I was like, holy shit.
Without any clear evidence against Jesse, investigators are forced to let him go. But they're not ready to give up. They continue to comb through CCTV footage, and it quickly becomes clear that Grace may have never left Jesse's apartment, but the same can't be said for Jesse, who left his apartment several times in the hours after their encounter. The morning following their date, Sunday, December 2nd, what would have been Grace's 22nd birthday, Jesse enters the elevator alone and exits the building through those automatic glass doors, seemingly without a care in the world. Seriously, he's calm and collected, walking with his chest out and his head up, and the image of it just infuriates me. CCTV captures him purchasing a large suitcase, and it's definitely big enough where you would have to check it when going on a flight. He buys that from a local shop before buying cleaning supplies at another store. He returns to his apartment and leaves once more, this time hailing a taxi, and yes, there's even footage of him in the taxi. So he takes that taxi to a car rental company where he rents a red sedan. And a few hours later at 4 p.m., Jesse's caught at a local bar meeting another Tinder date. He's even wearing the same thing as the night before, that light blue button-down shirt with a t-shirt underneath. And the two have a couple of drinks, but it turns out that she's frightened by his topic of conversation. So much so that she lies to him about where her car is parked, so that she doesn't have to walk with him back to his car. So what exactly did Jesse tell her? According to the woman, Jesse told her that his friends are cops who were searching for a body in the Waitakere Mountains just outside of Auckland. But that wasn't all Jesse told the woman. He then asked her if she knew that police dogs can't detect the scent of a body if it's buried more than 4 feet underground. After the date, Jesse returns to his apartment with a carpet cleaning machine that he rented. And the next time he's seen on CCTV footage, he's using a concierge cart to move 2 large suitcases into the elevator and then into his red rented car. The next morning, Monday, December 3rd, 2018, at 7 a.m., Jesse buys a shovel, then stops at the dry cleaners, tosses several large garbage bags, and washes the rented vehicle before returning to his apartment. Later that same day, he's seen at Albert Park carrying what looks to be a duffel bag before dumping the bag's contents into several trash cans throughout the park. Grace's father, David Millane, arrives in Auckland on December 7th and attends a press conference where he pleads for information regarding his daughter's disappearance. Here's an excerpt of David speaking at that press conference.
I would like to take this opportunity to appeal to anybody who has seen, spoken to, or come into contact with Grace over the last few days, and to come forward with any detail, no matter how small, and contact the investigation team. Once again, I thank you all for coming.
That same day, Jesse is taken into custody. And he's now crafting a very different story than the lies he told officers 2 days earlier. In just a moment, you'll hear Jesse tell the officers what, quote unquote, really happened.
You've indicated that you're willing to speak to us about the events of last Saturday. Is that correct?
Yes.
Tell me what happened last Saturday.
From the beginning,
yeah.
She started talking to me about 50 Shades of Grey, which is a sex fantasy movie that's out. We started having sex. At first it was just normal. It was very placid. And then she asked me if we could get into bondage. And then all I remember is falling asleep in the shower. I need to stop. I need to go.
Would you like some fresh air?
Yeah, please. I was in shock. I didn't know what to do. I went downstairs and I was just, I don't know, I was all over the place. I didn't believe what had happened. I was just terrified and scared. I thought that she had gone. I thought she had left.
Pathologist, specialist doctor, will perform a post-mortem.
Yeah.
They're very skilled at establishing people's causes of death. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
Did you kill Grace Millane? Okay. You're under arrest for the murder of Grace Millane on or about the 2nd of December. You understand?
Yeah.
Okay.
While Jesse's interrogation is underway, police begin their search of his apartment. Using luminol, crime scene experts discover a, quote, blood patch, 70 centimeters in diameter, and bloody footprints at the foot of his bed. The blood on the carpet wasn't visible to the naked eye because there had been attempts to clean it. However, it was visible on the cement underneath the flooring. Additionally, there was blood on the fridge and even on a suitcase in the closet, all of which had a 98% match to Grace's DNA. They also collected his cell phone records and internet search history. According to these documents, at 1:30 a.m. on December 2nd, Jesse has an internet search for the Watakanere Ranges, in addition to a Google search for hottest fire and porn. He also further violated Grace by taking photos of her deceased body. In the days following Grace's horrific murder, Jesse continuously Googled Grace's name in an attempt to keep tabs on the investigation. The day after Jesse was taken into custody, he led investigators to a shallow grave in a bush area along Scenic Drive in Waitakere Ranges. There, Grace's body was found inside a suitcase. The coroner reported that bruises were found on Grace's shoulders and arms as if she had been restrained forcefully. Meanwhile, a forensic scientist specializing in toxicology analyzed a sample of Grace's blood, finding the alcohol content was double that of the legal limit in New Zealand. She didn't, however, find any traces of drugs or poisons in her system. Jesse's trial began almost a year later in 2019, and it lasted about 3 weeks. A name suppression order was put in place to guarantee his right to a fair trial, but his name ended up circulating on the internet anyway as the world watched the trial take place. Jesse pleaded not guilty to a single charge of murder at his high court trial in Auckland. He did, however, admit to being with Grace the night she died, and he did admit to disposing of her body. His legal counsel used the quote-unquote rough sex argument, suggesting that Grace's death was the accidental result of a sexual encounter gone wrong. If that were truly the case, it doesn't explain his creepy and morbid decision to take photos of Grace's body after her death. The only thing that makes sense is that Jesse Shane Kempson is a truly evil human being. A psychologist on behalf of the Crown seems to agree because they testified that Jesse would kill again if given the opportunity. And it turns out that he had assaulted others in the past. During his trial for Grace's murder, 3 women came forward accusing Jesse of sexual assault, of which he'd later be convicted of 9 other charges, including rape, sexual assault, sexual violence, and threatening to kill. After only 5 hours of deliberation, Jesse Shane Kempson was found guilty of Grace Millane's murder. He was then sentenced to life in prison without parole for a minimum of 17 years. This sentencing infuriated Jesse. After hearing the news, he yelled out in court to the judge, quote, "You are so full of shit, mate. You have no reason to convict me. You are full of shit," unquote. The following year in 2020, Jesse appealed his conviction, but he was denied. But I'm done talking about Jesse. This story isn't about him. Instead, I'd like to spend our last few moments together to remember Grace Rose Millane and the family who was robbed of their precious daughter and sister. Grace, you may be gone, but you will never be forgotten.
And that's where we'll leave this episode for this week. Until our next episode, you know where to find us at the Murder Diaries Pod on Instagram and TikTok, at the Murder Diaries Pod at gmail.com, and the Murder Diaries Podcast.com. Go get your merch.
And if you haven't already, go ahead and rate, review, and subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. It helps us keep the good content flowing.
Your 5 stars mean everything. And until then,
stay safe.
Bye.
Is your daily grind getting you down? A ThermoSpa's hot tub may be the solution. Just a few minutes under those powerful soothing jets, and all your stress seems to melt away, like you're lying on a cloud of bubbles. You'll not only feel better, but sleep better too. Call 877-861-4672 now, and for a limited time, save $1,250. Call 877-861-4672 or visit thermospas.com to schedule a free on-site assessment.
Seeking the truth never gets old. Introducing June's Journey, the free-to-play mobile game that will immerse you in a thrilling murder mystery. Join June Parker as she uncovers hidden objects and clues to solve her sister's death in a beautifully illustrated world set in the Roaring '20s. With new chapters added every week, the excitement never ends. Download June's Journey now on your Android or iOS device, or play on PC through Facebook Games.